Your heart is a drum, and your blood is the river that carries the rhythms of what you hold onto and what you release. Welcome to Monday Movements. I'm going to take you through the psychosomatics of our circulatory system, the circulation. 3 key links that are associated to presentations within our circulatory system. This being a very general topic because we're talking about a system in the body, the 11 systems. So when we're looking at a more broader scope, like systems versus a particular area or ailment in the body, we're going to be looking at it with a more broader scope in general as well. So it's very much more open to your interpretation, but here are the 3 key links to the circulatory system and the mental, emotional, and energetic connections to that system in our body. Number 1, we have repeat patterns. It's a circulatory system. Number 2, we have reciprocity challenges, so receiving and giving. And number 3, pressure systems within co-regulations. I'm going to break those 3 key links down just so we can go a little bit deeper into the psychosomatics of the circulation. When we think about repeat patterns, the first key link, we're thinking about our circulation and how it is circulatory in nature. Our blood circulates day in, day out. It's one of our vital systems. They're all vital and all interconnected, but when we think about some of the most vital, we think nervous system, we think circulatory system, and we think digestive system and respiratory. They're like our main vital 4, the top 4 I would think of, that keeps us breathing, our heart pounding, our nervous system in check, to keep alert, to keep our body moving, to keep our mind going, and our digestion to fuel us. These are our 4 key main ones, and they're all cyclical in nature. And when we think about the circulatory system especially, and we're looking at repeat patterns, this is where you're stuck in a loop of some form of self-sabotage. So when we're talking about the circulation system versus the lymph system, which is also circulatory, as is the respiratory, we're talking about in circulation specifically loops or patterns of self-sabotage. The function of the circulatory system is to carry sustenance, to carry nutrients and oxygen to other systems within the body. They're all interconnected, like I said. And this system begins to break down when you hold on to energy or hold on to a certain pattern. And it's very internal, very personal, which is why it comes down to that of a self-sabotage pattern. And when you think about it on a biological level, when we're talking about how the circulatory system functions, if it constantly held on to nutrition and held on to oxygen, never releasing it to other systems, if it just held on to it, and there was no exchange, no reciprocity, which is key link number 2, then those nutrients and oxygen levels would stay in the system, never exchanging, and they would eventually become stagnant. Then the system itself would lose its overall purpose and function of providing those oxygen and nutrients to other systems in the body. So when we think about a repeat pattern on loop that's to do with self-sabotage, such as like guilt, shame, self-loathing, this loop as well begins to become stale. We begin to kind of sigh and like, oh my God, I'm so over this like pattern that I have with men, or this pattern that I have with mother or father, whoever that repeat pattern is. But it's like the internal wiring of that. Why are you enabling that pattern to repeat? It's what's happening inside. What are you repeating in your mind? What are you believing within your heart that is telling you that that pattern is just going to keep going, and that is okay for it to keep going? Because there's clearly an aspect of you that believes that it shouldn't keep going. Otherwise, it wouldn't be presenting in the body. That's what the pain body is. It tells us when there's something that we need to pay attention to be alerted to shift gears with. And so when we think about a self-sabotage pattern and the feeling of like not wanting to let go of it necessarily, but then also we don't know anything else. And the reason for that is because we become comfortable with the self-sabotage. We become comfortable with the feeling of that. We're familiar with how the story plays out. It's predictable. But the more stale that becomes, the more we repeat that loop, that cycle, the more stale it becomes, the more lack of momentum. The circulatory system is all about momentum. And so there's this inner conflict between wanting to release it but not knowing how, and also not really sure if you actually want to, because it's something that you've become so familiar with, so used to, because it's been a loop, a repeat pattern for a reason. And then that brings me on to key link number 2, reciprocity challenges. So letting it go, releasing, and also along with that, accepting something new in. If you identify with any of the above self-sabotaging patterns that I talked about, you will likely find a correlation within the circulatory system to said pattern. And this inability to give and receive, to have this energetic exchange within that pattern itself. If you feel like within that self-sabotage pattern, you are not worthy of accepting something into your life to do with that pattern, why would you be comfortable receiving it, right? So why would you be comfortable accepting it into your life? For example, why would you easily receive a compliment if you have self-sabotage and self-worth issues? Why would you receive a gift if you struggle to accept the fact that someone's been thoughtful and has done something for you? And this can sometimes be projected, where we have this, not only this inability to receive something, but in turn, it mirrors the exact same thing you aren't able to receive. There's that inability or that discomfort when we're going to provide or give the same thing in return. We're uncomfortable with that because we're uncomfortable with that mirrored effect. Or the opposite occurs, where we're trying to avoid receiving that thing so much that we focus on the outward energy of it. So for example, we may not like accepting gifts or compliments, but what we do like to over provide as a compensation, because it creates that kind of extra weight on one side where there's this imbalance, is like, I like to overgive. I really enjoy giving presents. I really enjoy giving people compliments. I really enjoy giving people attention. But then there's this like lack of internal attention, this lack of being able to receive compliments in return. And that's what brings me into key link number 3, pressure systems within co-regulation. And so a biological example of this when we're thinking about the circulation is hypertension, which is in essence high blood pressure. This can translate to hyper responsibility, hyper urgency, hyper perfectionism. In other words, you lack that healthy foundation of internal and external stability, internal and external support systems. And then we have the opposite example of that, which is hypotension, which is low blood pressure, which translates to the opposite of that of hypertension or high blood pressure, where with low blood pressure, there's this laziness or this laxity in responsibility in a certain area when it comes to cohesive relationships and internal self-sabotage. So it's not really in the physical sense, as in working hard, it's more the internal self-sabotage and not taking responsibility or not having agency, allowing yourself to have that sacred sovereignty within when it comes to our internal systems and how that relates to coexisting with others. So more relationships and internal systems. And we can also see this demonstrated when we think about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the one that links to many aspects of our digestion, our heart rate. It is responsible for the rhythms of our heart, where a dysregulated vagus nerve or an understimulated vagus nerve can affect the flightiness of our system and the beat of our heart being a little bit harder or hyper. And then we have more of a regulated vagus nerve or a stimulated vagus nerve, where this softens our heart and our rhythm within our body. Signs of the vagus nerve kind of calling out for more regulation, more stimulus, and to come into more of a parasympathetic state with the heartbeat and the breathing, the breath rate, is a sigh. Or warmth, we crave the comfort of warmth, or connection, the desire to connect with another. So if you've enjoyed this chat on the circulatory system, the psychosomatics, you can subscribe and find the next episode on a somatic practice that's going to help you further integrate anything that's showing up within the circulation for you right now. And so this practice is going to stimulate a kind of personal journey for yourself to go inwards and query what it is for you that's going on. For now, I will leave you with 3 questions to ponder over just to help begin that activation. What area of my life am I overgiving, overpumping a mass output of energy versus under-receiving or a low input? So where is that imbalance? You can also ask yourself, what pressure in my life can I lay to rest, all while maintaining the integrity of myself? So what can adapt while it still feels authentic and I don't feel like I'm losing myself within that adaptation? Is there an internal pressure that you're putting on yourself that isn't actually what's happening in the real world, in other words, that you can lay to rest? And the third question you can ponder over until next week's somatic practice is, if my heart shared her voice, what changes would she call for that could support and enhance her co-regulation with others? Perhaps a chat with a loved one, or a hiatus from work, taking some time out for yourself to reflect on those internal patterns. I leave this all with you, and I'll see you next week for the somatic practice on the circulatory system.